In June of this year, Alexander Zverev finally did something he'd chased for nearly a decade. After 3 previous Grand Slam final losses, he won the French Open, a 5-set battle against Flavio Cobolli, the first German man to lift that trophy since the Open era began. It should have been the defining moment of his career. A story of persistence finally rewarded. Instead, the win was met with something far more complicated than celebration. France's leading sports newspaper, L'Équipe, chose not to put his victory on its front page. A journalist asked him, on camera, about allegations that have followed him for 6 years. And Zverev ended the interview. "I think we should stop," he said. "It's better this way." This is a story about a champion whose biggest professional achievement keeps colliding with a set of serious, unresolved questions. Allegations he has consistently and firmly denied, that have never resulted in a criminal conviction, but that also have never fully gone away. To understand the weight behind that moment in Paris, you have to go back to October 2020, when Alexander Zverev's former girlfriend, Olya Sharipova, first spoke publicly, posting on social media that she had been a victim of domestic violence. She later named Zverev directly in interviews with Russian and German outlets, and in more detailed reporting published by journalist Ben Rothenberg. Her account described several specific incidents over the course of their relationship, including one she said occurred before the 2019 US Open. Zverev denied the allegations at the time, calling them unfounded. Sharipova did not pursue criminal charges. In response to the public allegations, the ATP commissioned an independent investigation. That investigation took roughly 15 months to complete, and ultimately concluded there was insufficient evidence to substantiate the claims. Separately, in 2023, Zverev faced a second set of allegations, this time from another former partner, Brenda Petea, the mother of his child. That case reached a Berlin court, where his legal team reached an out-of-court settlement. A spokesperson for the Tiergarten District Court was clear about what that outcome did and did not mean, stating publicly that the decision was not a verdict and was not a determination of guilt or innocence. One factor in that resolution, the court noted, was that the witness herself expressed a wish to end the trial. In the years since, both sets of allegations have continued to surface publicly, particularly at his biggest career moments. At the 2025 Australian Open, after Zverev lost the final to Jannik Sinner, a fan in the stands shouted out during his runner-up speech, invoking both women's names directly. Zverev stood silent as the crowd's applause drowned out the heckler. A similar moment happened at the BMW Open in Munich, his home tournament, where a fan shouted a direct insult referencing the allegations mid-match. Zverev gestured to the chair umpire and continued playing. By the time Zverev reached the 2026 French Open final, the pattern was well established. A major result, followed almost immediately by renewed public attention on allegations that had never been criminally prosecuted, but had also never fully faded from view. He wasn't asked about it directly in his post-final press conference. But the following day, in an interview with French outlet L'Équipe, journalist Quentin Moynet raised the subject. Zverev's response was brief. "Hold on. First of all, this isn't that kind of interview," he said, before ending the exchange shortly after. "I think we should stop. It's better this way." It was notably the second time in recent memory a journalist had asked him about it directly, following an earlier similar moment that he referenced explicitly in his response. There's a genuine tension at the center of this story, and it's one tennis as a sport has never fully figured out how to handle. On one side, due process. Alexander Zverev has never been criminally charged in either case. The ATP's own investigation into the Sharipova allegations found insufficient evidence to substantiate them. The Berlin court case involving Petea ended in a settlement, not a conviction, and the court was explicit that this outcome should not be read as a determination of guilt. Under any reasonable legal standard, Zverev is entitled to be treated as someone who has not been found guilty of a crime. On the other side, 2 separate women, in 2 separate relationships, years apart, have made detailed, specific allegations against the same man. Neither pursued the matter to a full criminal trial. Sharipova didn't press charges at all, and Petea's case ended when she chose not to continue it, a decision that can happen for many reasons, including the emotional and financial toll a prolonged legal battle takes on an accuser, not necessarily because the underlying claims lacked substance. The absence of a conviction is not, by itself, proof that nothing happened. It simply means the legal system, for whatever reason, didn't reach that determination. This is precisely the kind of situation that doesn't resolve neatly, and tennis, as an institution, has largely chosen not to engage with it directly. The ATP investigated once, years ago, and has not revisited the matter publicly since, even as the allegations have continued to resurface at nearly every major final Zverev has reached. Tournaments continue to feature him as a top seed. Sponsors have largely stayed silent. The sport has, in effect, allowed the question to exist in permanent suspension, unresolved, unaddressed, but also never fully investigated to a public conclusion beyond that initial 2020 inquiry. That silence extends to how the moment gets covered. Notice how carefully outlets word their coverage. Allegations, denied, insufficient evidence, not a verdict. Every phrase is legally careful, and rightly so. But that careful legal language is also, in its own way, a kind of avoidance. It allows the story to be reported without anyone, the ATP, the tournaments, the sponsors, even much of the media, having to take a clear public position on what should actually happen next, if anything. And that avoidance is exactly what surfaces every time Zverev wins something significant. A heckler shouting names in an arena, a newspaper quietly leaving a Grand Slam champion off its front page without explanation, a player abruptly ending an interview rather than engaging with the question at all. These aren't isolated incidents. They're recurring evidence that this story has never actually been resolved. Not legally, not institutionally, not in the court of public opinion. It's simply been managed, moment to moment, by everyone involved, including Zverev himself. So what does this actually mean going forward for a player who's now a Grand Slam champion and one of the sport's biggest active stars? Practically, very little appears likely to change in how tennis's institutions handle this. There's no indication the ATP intends to reopen or expand its 2020 investigation. Tournaments have shown no signs of altering how they seed or promote him. He remains one of the most bankable, high-profile players in the men's game, a Wimbledon finalist and French Open champion heading into the US Open with genuine title credentials. The sport's structures, as they currently stand, treat the legal outcomes, no charges, no conviction, a settlement explicitly framed as not a verdict, as sufficient basis to proceed as normal. But the public reaction suggests something less settled. The L'Équipe front-page decision wasn't a small thing. It was one of the most respected sports publications in the world, making a deliberate editorial choice not to celebrate a Grand Slam breakthrough the way it normally would. The heckling incidents at multiple tournaments, across different countries, suggest this isn't a story that only lives in old news articles. It's something a meaningful portion of the tennis public actively remembers and brings up, unprompted, in real time, at his biggest moments. And Zverev's own pattern of response, declining to engage, redirecting, ending interviews, while entirely his right, has also meant the allegations have never been addressed by him at length, in his own words, beyond firm denial. That leaves an unusual dynamic heading into future tournaments, including the US Open. Every deep run he makes will likely reopen the same questions. Every trophy ceremony carries the possibility of another heckler, another uncomfortable silence, another outlet quietly declining to celebrate the way it normally would. For Zverev, that means his career achievements, however real and hard-earned on the court, may continue to exist alongside a story that competing legal outcomes have left unresolved rather than settled. For the sport more broadly, it raises a harder question that extends beyond one player. What should tennis actually do when serious allegations don't result in a conviction, but also don't fully go away? There's no clear precedent, no established protocol. Right now, the answer appears to be nothing formal, and let the public, the press, and the player himself each handle it however they choose, match by match, headline by headline. So how should we actually think about Alexander Zverev, standing where he is right now? A Grand Slam champion, a Wimbledon finalist, one of the best players in the world, and simultaneously, a man whose name keeps getting shouted in connection to allegations he has never been convicted of, but has also never fully put to rest. There isn't a clean answer here, and it would be dishonest to pretend there is one. The legal record, as it currently stands, shows no criminal conviction. An ATP investigation found insufficient evidence. A civil case ended in settlement, explicitly not framed as a finding of guilt. By any standard measure of due process, Zverev has not been found responsible for what he's been accused of. That matters, and it deserves to be stated plainly rather than glossed over. At the same time, two separate women, in two separate periods of his life, made specific, detailed allegations. And the fact that neither case reached a full criminal trial doesn't erase that those allegations were made, or automatically mean they were untrue. The tennis world has largely chosen not to engage with that tension directly. Tournaments continue as normal. The ATP hasn't revisited its investigation, and every time Zverev reaches another final, the same uncomfortable questions resurface anyway. In a newspaper's front page, in a heckler's shout, in a reporter's question that gets shut down before it can be answered. Maybe that's simply where this story remains, indefinitely, unresolved by design, because the legal system reached outcomes too ambiguous to fully clear him or fully condemn him, and because nobody in tennis's institutions has decided it's their place to go further than the courts already have. Zverev will likely keep winning matches, keep reaching finals, keep building a resume that history will remember, and this story, whether anyone wants it to or not, will likely keep following him there. Some questions in sport get answered on the scoreboard. This one, it seems, never will be.